Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to Occultists Anonymous, our little corner of the internet. I need to turn off the volume so I'm not hearing myself because that's really distracting. We're back once again with our Star Trek miniseries as Drew takes a bit of a hiatus to plan more further shenanigans for our regular Meiji Awakening game. And we have joined the crew of the USS Curie on their deep space mission. All kinds of fun things have been going on, but I'll get to that in a moment. We are sponsored today, as always, by Roll20 and viewers like you, specifically Ryan, Thomas, Nobody, Harry, Michael, Cat Feathers, Josh, Alexander, Puppeteer, Email, Moku, Melissa, Secret FFL, Other Guy, Bernie, John, Al. All you need is my oonts. Jenny, Zoltan, Funzo Suru Ali, Milo V3, Vortex Falcon 00, Adele, Crazy Man 1772, George, Chris, Chexara, Inconspicuous Whistling, Taryn, Riafio, Ms. Grumpy. Can the crew yeet themselves back into space? That's their name.
That is the plan.
Buck, Mozart D minor, Foog, Clara, Shane, James, Chandra, John, Klaus, Porter, Alsrit, Long Live the Queen, Alex, and Sean. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. The money raised through Patreon does things like pay for art and replace equipment and things like that. And I tested out that name with Drew to see if I was even doing it right, because I'm old.
I wanted to suggest it's like Craig just dad it up and just be like, I don't get this. These kids.
We are using the Star Trek Adventures rules from Apotheosis. It's a D20 system where low numbers are good, high numbers are bad. 1s are criticals and 20s are critical fails. We are exploring the universe of the Star Trek, the original series timeline. Star Trek is an intellectual property that lends itself to a lot of detail, and there's a lot of information out there. But that's not what we're about. We don't necessarily care about where a particular person's quarters are in that model of ship at the time of the period. But I totally get that. We are using the intellectual property as the paint and canvas, which we are using to paint you an entertaining word picture. So we're more about the story than adhering closely to the facts as published. When we last left our story, our crew had been somehow abducted from their ship and appeared on a planet in a city inhabited by giant Amazon queens, and were indoctrinated into a culture that has as its sole focus the elevation of the queens through genetic manipulation. Candidates arrived and were put through a series of trials, and the best candidates for those trials were selected to inform the next generation of queens. Through some happenstance and then some clever technical work, Commander Kit Neal managed to get himself out of the indoctrination process and then proceeded to free most of the senior crew. They've been working within the scenes. They're not prisoners or anything. They're free to come and go as they please. They've had a lot of inroads with the society and have actually managed to make a couple of the queens ask some fairly obvious questions about things that had never occurred to them. And that caused a chain reaction where basically the whole society has now unraveled. All the queens are now aware of the lie that they have been living for generations, and that the Caretaker is not actually helping them to ascend. The Caretaker is in many ways holding them back. So the crew of the Curie and the queens have now joined forces in an effort to escape the clutches of the Caretaker. And at the end of our last episode, the Caretaker had implemented its reset protocol, which is basically just turn off all power to the city and just wait for things to proceed naturally, and then clean up the mess afterwards and start fresh. Of course, the people that are in the city are not particularly interested in just going quietly into that good night, and they are working to counteract the efforts of the Caretaker. I think that covers everything. Anything I missed? Any salient points anyone wants to bring up?
Basics.
Okay, roll that intro.
Space. The final frontier. These are the brave adventures of the Starship Curie, whose 3-year mission is to explore new worlds, to seek out new civilizations, and to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Okay, we open up in a city dark. As the sun sets, the lights have all gone out, all your computer systems are dead, food replication is offline, you are very much in a primitive sort of state. Now, you had some time and took some precautions to you knew this was going to happen, so you prepared for it in some ways and tasked some of your people. So all of the difficulties for the tasks that have been assigned to you have been reduced by 1 because of your preemptive action. So the numbers that you're seeing that we've already talked about are the reduced numbers. You also, instead of having resource scarcity immediately, have bought yourselves through careful planning and coordination and Yeoman Narkek's efforts and things of that nature, you've bought yourself 2 blocks of time before resource starvation starts to become an issue. So there's going to be a timed, sort of a time clock going in the background as we work through our various tasks. The first extended task that we're going to talk about is the communication system. There's other things that are happening that are going to just, they'll basically occur as events after a given amount of time. But one of the biggest things you need to do is get your communications up and running. And there's 2 parts to that. There's the local communications, which would improve coordination and resource distribution and things like that, which would actually buy you guys extra time before resource scarcity starts to become a factor. And then there was also a plan to establish subspace communications. Initially, you had wanted subspace communications to be covert, but given that the pieces are on the board now, as far as that may not be a factor anymore.
Yeah, not worried about stealth now.
So the
Cat's
way
out of the bag.
Right, exactly. So the way in my head I've kind of organized it is that there's a local communications piece and then the subspace communications piece. That's all part of the same extended task, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. We have other crew doing other things, like trying to figure out how to free the crew from the indoctrination. Dr. Hudson is working off screen with one of the servitors, sort of coerced into giving a hand. So that'll be producing some events at certain time periods as well. And the captain has inserted himself into the command structure of been invited into insert yourself. It's a mutual thing. Into the command structure of the Queens to help coordinate and make sure resources are going where they're needed.
We all need to chip in here a little bit. Chris is not here, so we all need to be on our game with facial expressions here.
Yes, that's right.
Inserting yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. Sure. Thank you. I didn't even realize that.
I can ham it up even more if you want.
So you're going to have an extended task that's basically just a repeating work track, like a repeating extended task. And every time you complete it, you're going to add 2 blocks of time to your resource scarcity.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, as your resources become scarcer and scarcer, things like difficulties will go up and that sort of thing. So you're definitely in a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there will be some events that buy you guys some time and move your scarcity to the right, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone wants to get out of the way before we get into that side of things?
Well,
I'm the first half I'm expecting is to be fairly mechanical and working through and just narratively deciding what's happening and stuff like that. But if there's stuff anyone wants to fit in before that, let me know.
Right now, Nurjad's goal is the crew. At this point, any of the crew that are still mind-whammied are his focus. I know that there's already a process that Dr. Hudson is working on, but at this point, John may be literally running around. Ash made the joke, I got 2 hands, and just zapping folks and, zap a couple. Go ahead.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be in your job because you do have resources available to you.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. Like, not, I am the XO. I'm not literally, but that is going to be his, goal is to get the entirety of the USS Curie up and aware, because worst comes to worst, Nurjad does not want any of his crew starving and dying off without having any memory of who they actually are.
Right. So, and narratively, I totally get, and that's happening. You've got some handheld stunners basically that you can make use of to get people in 1s and 2s and that kind of thing. So that's going to happen in the background. But that's kind of a wash as far as the limits and numbers go. People that are free to think independently are going to, act independently. So they're not necessarily contributing more or less. It actually might be there's a case to be made that would be more beneficial to have them stay indoctrinated, because then they'll just follow the orders.
No, absolutely not. Nope.
And that's fine. So that's a trade-off you're choosing to make, and that's okay. So that'll be happening sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah. Which it makes sense that there's not anything Nurjad can really do to speed that process up. So if that's where we're at, that's cool.
Okay, and that's what Dr. Hudson's working on. So what I had for Vrilla and Nurjad was working on the communication system.
Yeah, I was doing that with Jiffis. That was like...
Oh, no,
or were you doing it with me?
Jiffis is working on tracking where the
right.
Caretaker is, and working on getting some sort of main power up and running.
But yeah, basically as soon as the power went down, I'm pivoting to that. Like, that is priority. And I mean, I see in your list it's listed as like one of the preliminary tasks, which is immediately what I would be doing.
Right, and the power that I'm talking about in your task description that I've got as a handout there is you need a power source for your communication system. So you've got some decisions to make on how you're going to approach it. You can cannibalize the existing stuff and sort of build your own broadcast tower to make use of all the local stuff, or you can just build your own from scratch.
I'm more concerned with getting people like actual power first, like some bare bones, because they don't have food replicators right now.
Right, but Jiffis is already working on that. So that's a task that's been spawned off to an NPC at the end of last session.
Okay.
And he's got resources, and the seat of Apotheosis is working with him and that kind of stuff to get. So that's kind of handled, and there'll be events from that along the way as we work through tonight. Right? So at some point, theoretically, power will come on, or there'll be issues that you guys have to deal with and that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So the power that I'm talking about in your work track is just for the communication system.
Okay.
Because until there's main power up and running, you're going to have to come up with something in the interim. And you can table that and just have everything else ready and wait for main power to come on. That's certainly an option to you. You can just sort of delete that little preliminary factor and then move ahead and build everything else as if you had power and just wait for it to be finished. Or you can just build an independent power source. That's sort of up to you. So you have some preliminary stuff to get out of the way. You need to decide what you're going to do about power. That's difficulty 2. Come up with a transmission method. That's a difficulty 1. And do a protocol analysis if you're going to use the existing hardware. There's a lot of it out there. It's all self-powered. And that's just difficulty 1. So those 3 things have to be either dealt with or decided and solved before you can start on your work track. So how do we want to proceed?
I would say protocol analysis, because I want to try to use what we've got as much as possible.
Sure. So you'll be using the existing system as much as possible, just basically building your own, bootleg communications tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to take what's already here and make it ours instead of the Caretakers.
Sure. Oh, even better. So that would include some security so the Caretaker couldn't override it.
Yeah, I'm basically... I want to take control of the planet from him, starting with this.
Okay. And that's doable.
Whatever it is.
But I think I'm going to bump the difficulty of the protocol analysis to secure it from interference up to 2.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Easy.
Okay.
Now, is that the difficulty or the magnitude?
Well, this isn't work track stuff yet. This is
Okay.
just preliminaries you have to complete before you get to the work track. So this is just a straight task. And the transmission was just a straight one. It's working up and building a communications tower, basically, to communicate with the devices. It's a fairly small area. You're only worried about the city for now.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to expand that later. What are you going to do about the power?
Nurjad has no problem putting together a power system. I mean,
Okay.
we've got a ton of self-powered things in the area.
Yeah, it's just a matter of powering the broadcast system, so you guys can work on that. So that I have that as a difficulty of 2.
Cool.
You got a comment, Ralph?
I was just going to suggest pull out the emergency dilithium crystals.
Right. Just roll those
Except-
out. Yeah.
Except you don't have your ship.
Your first aid kit.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like, do we have solar panels around? Do we know how to?
Well, and that's all options. And I'm not getting into necessarily the details of how you're building your power system, unless you have some clever ideas that you want to try and adjust the difficulty. I've just sort of generic power system difficulty 2, or decide to wait until main power is available from Jiffus, which may be some time. Okay, so we've got
1960 sci-fi.
So we've
Power.
3 tasks that need to be completed before you can start your work track. You can work on them independently, or take longer but have a better chance of success by helping each other. Sort of your choice. How do you want to proceed?
If this is not, well, actually, yeah. Difficulty 2, I think I can handle.
Yeah, I've got
I guess it's true. Yeah. What is your engineering?
4 insecurity. My engineering is 4 also.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, this would all be reason engineering.
Mhm.
Or,
Okay,
pardon
and
me.
I've got 11 and 4 in those.
Craig, could I perhaps come up with a daring and potentially dangerous option for getting a power system set up?
Pitch me a narrative that daring would apply.
Specifically, no. Yes, there is a power line up here. Trust me, I'll get it down. It's fine. And less of the, work smarter method that, the lieutenant is likely to do, and Nurjad's gonna roll his sleeves up and go, yeah, no, why build the thing? And it's right there. We just got to get it down here. And yeah.
So I have an electrical pole.
Yeah.
Take a few shortcuts, that kind of thing.
Notably, this is putting himself at risk, not necessarily the power line and stuff like that. I know I'm probably risking some additional complications. But yeah, Nurjad's willing to put himself on the line to get this done sooner.
So
If I can support that,
Sure.
perhaps one of your previous incarnations was a lineman.
I will allow a daring engineering roll, or I would even do a security engineering roll, or pardon me, a control engineering roll if you wanted.
Oh yeah, that's true, because
What I-
controls is the computer equipment just
Yeah,
fine.
using tools basically.
Mhm.
So, but I will raise the complication range by 1.
Okay, complication range is now 2. All right, I'm cool with that.
Okay. You're looking at a difficulty 2 task.
I'm going to spend 1 momentum to
Okay.
buy myself an additional die. And I don't know that I have any focus that apply. Unless the fact that this is a coordinated thing and
You absolutely have crew resources available to you from the Queens, so I could say this definitely falls under that.
Cool. All right. So let's see what happens here.
Okay. Yeah, because you guys aren't working alone. You have a little army of.
No problem.
Okay, no problem. And an extra, so you can either reduce the time it took to complete that, bank the momentum.
If I am happy to reduce the amount of time that it took me to do that if it means I can go help the lieutenant. on like the tail end of her task?
Well, you have 3 tasks that you need to complete, so you can basically just bang that off really quickly and still be in the first segment to complete the second task. It's basically a times 0 task you've just completed.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So you were working on power?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So power is done. And you were working on protocol analysis difficulty?
Yes, basically trying to hack and secure this system.
Okay.
So reason engineering.
Yep.
I don't have innate talents or anything to apply.
And we got 2 momentum, so I was going to say if you want to buy an additional die, which you can apparently totally do after rolling.
Oh, really?
I would like to do that.
I must have missed that. That's appealing.
We have a bot to smash.
Don't worry, Norbot's on it.
Okay, so if we buy the
Bot
second
fight.
one, then that gets the 2, right?
So?
We spend the momentum, then that gives me the 2 to solve this.
No, you would still need to roll an additional
Roll
die.
1 die.
Okay,
Yeah, so change your task roll to 1.
there we go.
You got it. Okay, protocol analysis is done. Took the full time. But you can go on to your transmission difficulty 1 task, reason engineering.
I guess I can work on that.
I think for both.
No, you're doing your protocol analysis for the entire segment.
Oh,
Your
right.
job is
Okay, you can do this because
You can
you
do that.
got the power on quick.
Right. And
Which I imagine probably helps me with messing around in these systems, having them
Goodness.
running again.
okay, so no focus 2, and you said this is a difficulty 1.
difficulty 1.
In that case, I'm not going to spend momentum, and I'm just going to roll my 2 dice and pray that works. I will take that complication.
I'm going to take that as threat. Actually.
Sure.
I like that better than actually messing up our communication system.
All right. So at the first time segment, communications are. You've got the preliminaries out of the way, and now we can start on the work track. While that's going on, Captain, do you want me to give me a swing at your task?
Happy to.
So just for the
Captain
viewers at
Chichalor.
home,
Yeah,
it's a difficulty 2, magnitude of 2, work track is 15.
15 or
And
7.
this is repeatable. 7. Yeah. And so every time you complete the work track, it adds 2 more time segments to your resource starvation issues.
Excellent. Need to prevent starvation.
Okay.
We see.
I need to deal with this for a second.
Gotcha. We see, somewhat in montage, Commander Chichalor gallantly loin girding and walking about, motioning with his finger, placing his hands on hips, yielding indulgently to suggestions that people are making, having conversations with Yeoman Nurkek, and then yielding and accepting the advice, and also putting his head together with the head of the seat of Zeus and reaching a point of delighted agreement.
And my read on the captain is that he's also not above getting his hands dirty. So
Oh,
if there's a
that's quite
particular
true.
trouble spot, he's down in there, like moving boxes and sorting people out and that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Pushing stuff around, carrying things if necessary, greasing the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to be just the person turning the crank, you know? He could also
Right.
be in there replacing the gears. So,
Okay.
however you want to abstract that is okay with me. I
All right.
think that in large part this is probably a presence command task.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And I think team dynamics are quite important. All right, right up his alley. So, let's see. I believe we are depleted of all but 1 momentum, right?
Affirmative.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to take that because I imagine I'll be able to generate more. And let me see if I have anything that might aid this. Ally succeeds. Not assisting anybody. No, this is just going to be straight presence command with 3 dice. Alrighty. Roll in it. Do a task. Roll and get 1. That's terrible.
Okay.
Difficulties 2.
Difficulties 2. All right.
Yep.
So no work completed on this
Yep.
go.
So he's doing things and not helping.
Well, no, things aren't getting worse.
Okay.
You
good.
just haven't freed
Things
up
aren't
more
getting
resources. Or,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. It'll
A lot
get
of this-
better. It'll
get
get
better.
better, everyone.
A lot of this is you don't have a communication system and
Mhm.
you don't have any kind of power source. So, like, there's literally runners going around, and you're basically playing a game of telephone tag with
Yeah,
them
that
to
makes
try
sense.
and sort stuff out. So, signals are getting crossed and that kind of thing.
If I can offer something else, perhaps this is also a little. There's a little bit of friction or inefficiency in us integrating the expected command structure and functionality between the two groups. Like, we're both trying to work together and we're all committed to it, but we have different social expectations for how we communicate with each other.
Notably, I don't think there's a single queen on the planet who is ready for somebody that is not a queen giving orders.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's right. So there'll be some friction there, absolutely. All right. So let's get a swing at the work track for you guys for the communications part.
What are you rolling for this?
Difficulty is 2. Your magnitude is 4. The work track is 15.
Which, for everybody at home, basically means we need to get 2 successes in order to make any progress. When we do make those successes, we will roll 2d plus whatever our engineering is. So for me, that'll be 5d6, and for Ash, it'll be 6d6.
Well, but you are assisting. So, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be, but because the two of you are working on this together, you can assist, and any successes that you get in your job, give her extra dice to roll for her task.
Check. I thought there was something that we could both end up working on. Notably, because my little perk only works if I'm making effect.
If you're making
rolls.
them.
Yeah.
Well, and you can make the effect rolls.
I mean, 6 one, half dozen the other.
Yeah.
But at a difficulty of, I believe, 2, right? Because, yeah. Like, I don't know how much it helps compared to us working parallel. Because I can manage difficulty 2 pretty well, I think.
Right, but having those extra dice to roll gives a potential for extra momentum, which you can do things like half the time that it took for that.
Oh, that's true. And I think you can do additional work, right? For each
And you
die?
can do additional work, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So definitely there's a benefit to the assist side of things.
Oh, yeah, okay. It increased the work by +1 and is repeatable. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so you'll roll, and then Ash will roll and add extra dice depending on your successes.
Now, if I remember correctly, when helping, I'm still only rolling 1 dice.
Yes.
Okay, reason and engineering go. How about 2?
2 extra dice for Ash for free.
Okay, so I'm rolling 4 by default.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Can I apply my value of emotion in a crisis only makes things worse? So just like being collected.
Folks around you are definitely high emotions, and this is a pretty stressful situation, so staying calm would definitely give you some benefit. I would allow that, sure.
So you're spending your determination on that?
My determination box was empty. But I don't think I've used it. Did I? No, I haven't
never
used
read
it.
Yeah. That works out very well if you get a bunch of momentum.
Yeah, I'll use that. What does that do?
It would
I've
be
forgotten.
it counts as an additional die, so it's a 5th dice, but it automatically rolls a 1, so it's a crit.
Okay, so do I roll it or no?
You'll roll 4 because you already got.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
you
then
roll it,
automatically get 1. Okay.
So 3 successes on your own, plus 2 from your determination is 5 total successes. You only needed 2, so you have 3 extra.
But especially since Ash, it's technically your roll and your momentum. I'm just going to point out that if we have that momentum there for 3 momentum, I can give you determination back. Because I am the XO, and that is my job.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we'll put the roll of momentum.
So one momentum to get determination back, or is it 3?
I have to do it 1 at the end of the scene, 3 to get it back immediately.
Okay.
So, everybody have your moment of Nerdjot in cheerleader outfit. Come on, Lieutenant, you got this.
Short skirt, hairy legs. I love it.
Yes.
I'm totally there.
Basically, just rolled it over into having a determination back.
Yep.
For the next time to roll.
Yep.
And the spots do go all the way, by the way.
Yes. And then you have to roll your.
So your engineering plus 2 for challenge dice. So whatever your engineering is, I believe it's 4. Or is it 5?
It's 4, so I'm rolling 6 challenge dice.
Mm-hmm. And just remember to put the 6 in and then click out so it actually updates. And then, Craig, did you say my talent is going to apply to this because I'm working on this?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, did the effects count as 2?
With me,
Tim.
Okay.
my talent normally it does not. That was the big thing. I was like, hang on, I have this really good talent. Wait, 9?
Or 9 and a complication?
Isn't that
No.
That's 6. Right? 2, 4, 6. Oh, never mind.
2, 4,
Carry
5,
on.
6, 7,
Carry on,
8,
everybody. Nothing to see here.
All right.
You're just failing
but
in math.
Because you've got more than 3 or more than 5, you automatically get a breakthrough. So that knocks off 1 of the magnitude.
Of 4.
And you have 4 work track left. You guys are just slamming through that. I knew I should have been higher.
I mean, you're letting me use reason, which is my best stat, so...
Yeah. Okay. Now, however, things have gone slightly awry. Because of difficulties in coordination and getting resources where they need to be. It's not that you don't have the resources, it's they're not where they need to be. You're starting to have some resource scarcity issues in general amongst the populace. Not able to get the things that you need in order to be able to do the work you're trying to do. So that will increase all difficulties by 1.
Oh no.
To increase the difficulty of coordination.
Increase all difficulties for tasks currently underway by 1. Because this is impacting the entire community.
Sure.
Sort of thing. All right, so let's go with another command.
Presence. All right, well, let's see. We are going to make sure we do not die. It's important to be determined. And I think this is a context in which he needs to remember that the chain of command depends on every link. And that's particularly relevant when you're forming a new chain. So, Captain Trichalor is going to use his point of determination. We'll see if he gets it back. So, we don't have any momentum. But
Nope.
the determination helps. So, we're going to roll. Got the focus on, got my 2 dice. Presence command is there. All right, do it with 2. So 4. And
4.
difficulty 2, magnitude 2.
Difficulty 92. Yes. Go ahead and roll your challenge dice.
Got it. So I roll. Oh, that's right, because this isn't an attack. I need to add in the
You use your determination.
Number.
You actually had 4.
Mm-hmm.
4 additional ones.
No, you have a total of 4 successes because you used your
Okay.
determination.
Gotcha. I just meant, don't you add it to your discipline?
No. hang
Did I
on.
misunderstand that?
I think you two are talking about two different things at the same time.
Yep.
Hang on.
Cool.
So the difficulty was actually 3, but you got 4 because you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So difficulty wasn't 2; it raised. It's difficulty's 3 current. Yeah.
Right. So you have an extra momentum. So you can. Was it 1 to half the time or 2? That I don't remember.
Additional work, reroll work, extended tasks.
Yeah, I think we can use 1 difficulty to half the time. So instead of taking 2 time blocks for this particular session, it would only be 1, if you wish, or you can apply that to additional work.
And what do you mean by additional work? The work track?
So now you're going to do, because you meet the threshold for your successes, you're going to roll your discipline plus 2 for challenge dice.
Great, cool.
And your work track is only 7.
Yeah.
And
all right, excellent.
And the additional work is just 1 automatic 1, so it's 7d6 plus 1, sort of.
Oh, gotcha. No, I don't think I'd do that. That momentum could be better used.
You can cut that time in half then. So instead of taking 2 blocks of time, you can only take it. You can do it in 1.
I'd like to do that.
Sure.
Let me first roll a challenge to see if I get my determination back.
Sure.
Nope. Okay. Determination spent for the session. No worries. And then I'm going to roll my 5 challenge dice.
7 challenge dice.
7, that's right. Plus 2, that's right. 7. Cool.
What? You didn't click off?
Oh, I didn't press enter.
Didn't click out.
This
You fool.
character sheet.
There you go.
That's better.
2,
All right.
3,
That's
4,
better.
5, 6, 7. So that blows away the work track, gives you that clears it.
Yep. And it's more than 5, so that's the 2 magnitude needed.
And that gives you the extra 2. So that moves everything right by 2.
Does that reduce the difficulty as a consequence?
It stops it from getting worse.
Oh, okay. So it's still a 3.
Yeah.
Oh, I see how this is going. I should have spent the determination on the first roll.
It's all good.
I didn't realize the difficulty was going to get higher, but that was implicit. So I don't think I was picking that up well.
All right.
Okay.
So you've worked out some of the kinks in the coordination and things like that. Stuff is starting to flow. You're a little bit behind the 8 ball because of some the previous snarls and things like that. But things are going not too bad.
Excellent.
At this time, nope, not yet actually. A little bit more. So let's go back to communications. Another swing at your work track.
Yep. Let me throw my die at that.
Oh, wait. You had an extra success. You had a breakthrough from your challenge dice, which automatically reduces your difficulty by 1.
So
that
it's still at
counteracts-
2.
So it's still a 2, but it's not a 3.
Okay, so I get to roll 3.
Mm-hmm. And you can use your determination.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Three, 4, 5, 6 successes. That's a pretty awesome. You can do that your trip once, right?
I'm gonna double check. I think it's once per task.
That
thing.
seems right. Because otherwise it would be very broken.
It
Right,
is expensive. It's a lot of momentum.
So it's you 2. So you have 4 extra momentum. You can half the time you spent doing that. which I
I
think
guess
is
that would just let
probably-
me do this twice in this time period, right?
Well, instead of taking 2 chunks of time, it's only going to take 1. So that'll be 1 momentum, and you have 2 extra to do extra work if you wish.
Yeah, I'm on a half the time.
Okay.
Do you want to keep those as momentum to be spent?
Craig, I'm reading over what this says. When another character in communication with the executive officer spends a point of momentum, the executive officer may spend 3 momentum immediate to let that character regain the spent point of momentum, or spent point of determination.
Okay, so you have 3 momentum left over. You can.
You better
get your
believe.
determination back.
I mean,
and work
yeah,
with-
we can
like,
just keep doing that.
Like, Commander Nerdjaw's always been a pretty good XO, but in a crisis right now, working side by side, like, he is just so motivating.
Well, I mean, because if I may, the Queen is watching.
I'm just gonna work very hard.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I guess we just spend that momentum to get my determination back.
The big trick is it has to be. I have to have the momentum when you spend the determination. If it's not there, then I can't come back around and be like, oh, here's determination back with 3 momentum. It has to be then.
Has to be right in the moment.
Okay, so how many dice is this? Is it 6 again?
Yeah, your discipline +2. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That blows away the remaining work track entirely. That gives you 2 more
Breakthroughs.
Am I looking at this? Yeah, 2 breakthroughs. So you're down to 1 magnitude remaining. So you guys are almost done.
Yeah, now that the work track is complete, all we need to get is 1 work done.
Yeah. If you do any work now, it's automatically a breakthrough, and that will complete your task.
Very productive. A good team.
All right, let's do another command roll, and then there's an event.
You got it.
Okay.
Are you sure the Queen was watching?
Pretty sure. I'll tell her about it later.
Come on, come on, come on. Why? What's happening? I'll tell you what's happening.
Okay.
He's out of his element.
It is difficult sometimes when you're in the big chair to subordinate and like co-lead with somebody else.
Yeah.
Your whole career has been training for you to be alone in the big chair. And now there's all these other things to consider and all these other people and opinions to get, and you're not used to deciding things by committee.
Yeah.
You're used to taking input and then making a decision.
I spoiled you.
That's right. Too good. You did your job too well.
So no extra time from the CO. However, but we had yeah, and that's 2. But there's an event that happens at this point now.
Okay, go ahead.
Your thing is taking, we're sort of mismatched as far as time blocks, but at this point, Jiffus reports that main power has been established.
Yes.
And a bunch of little worker bees are running lines. There's like lines in the street, warning signs, barricades put up, and that kind of thing. Big cables all over the place, getting power to where it needs to be. So that reduces all difficulties by 1.
Oh, awesome.
Because you now have access to a centralized power structure.
Fantastic.
So moving forward, and you guys are almost done anyway, that's going to kick everything else up as well. So that means that Nerdjaw has a report. When Commander Winona Levine has managed to arrange, find a stockpile of vehicles and found people who were able to fly them.
You bet she did. Hi, it's me.
Because of her efforts, that gives you guys 4 time blocks.
Awesome.
So difficulties will not increase for another 4.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. So that buys you a lot of time. Now that you have transportation, it's easier to get those resources where you need them to be for the coordination side of things. So you get personnel and food, medicines, blankets, shelter, all stuff. You're much better able to move things around. And let's finish off the communication task. And that'll catch you guys up as far as time goes.
Excellent.
No help.
Do you want to do the honors?
Difficulty is 1 now.
I was going to let you finish it.
You should do it, and hopefully just do it without using your
Yeah, I'm just rolling it with
determination.
my normal. It's 2 dice, right? Normally.
Perfect.
Okay, and that gives you a momentum back on the board.
Yeah, we'll just keep that one stored.
Yes, I need a token for that.
I'm showing that we're at 2.
I have 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 1 because I didn't store any of the ones that I made previously.
There we go. All right, 1 on the board. And you guys have completed the communication system. That's the local one. There's an additional component to get the subspace one up and running, but that's a whole other. That's not a survival thing. That's a. We want to see if there's anyone out there to give us a hand thing. All right.
So if I can fluff this a little bit,
Sure.
in the captain's hand, the ramshackle, cobbled together little communicator. Exo to captain.
Well, and to, no, I want to clarify. You're using the local infrastructure, so it's a really slick, very thin.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Piece of plastic that actually ends up being like a phone almost. So this little device that you've been carrying around starts to beep, and you see Commander Nerjod's face appear.
Well, Commander, it seems one of us is succeeding.
I mean, we have ships in the air. We have things going where they need to be. We can actually talk. I feel like I'm almost back on the ship again.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is. Where do you need me now?
And with the communications up, there is no more extended difficulty for resources. Because you're able to get, with instant communications, you're able to find exactly where they need to go. You have transport pilots to fly them where they need to go. So the resource scarcity is not a factor now. There's still a ticking point.
Or you run out of resources?
Well, actually, with main power, no, you guys are in the clear now.
Because we have the replicators,
Because now you have
or the equivalent.
you're able to get replicators online as required. You still need to get, like, it's one replicator with a cable that runs back to where this, so you have, but you have
So slow.
You have a source of food available, and you can get that distributed.
We prevented starvation.
You've definitely prevented starvation.
So briefly, in response to Commander Kidneal's question, Captain Chichalor says, if you have the time, I'd like you by my side.
I'll be there.
So Vrilla will be working on the subspace communications.
Yeah, I missed whatever you were saying, Craig. Could you repeat that?
Sure. Did somebody help? I don't remember where I was at when we lost Drew.
I was talking about going to meet up with the captain, and then it all went black.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah, I did my rolls and finished my part, and then you were going to address what they were doing.
Okay, so you go. You wanted the captain to head to the captain. So Captain Chuchuar, Lieutenant Kitneal, or Commander Kitneal shows up in the coordination center.
Fantastic.
Oh, cool. I didn't miss much of that.
Then you see the captain standing off, stroking his chin. I know it probably didn't take very long for Kitneal to walk over, but yeah, he has a pensive expression on his face.
Something wrong, Captain?
Not wrong exactly. I've just realized something that might influence how we do things on the ship going forward. So I realized a deficit in Starfleet command structure that resulted in... What's the right way to describe this? Resulted in my skills being less effective than I wanted them to be in this moment. We're here in a crisis, and I was trying to help things be as efficient as possible through, coordination and aid and timely advice. And it seemed like it was just hampering the efforts that everyone was taking. It might have worked better if I had just stood back and thought of battle strategy for what still comes. What I've observed is their Council of 14 functions differently than we do. I admit, it might be because you do your job just so damn well. But I'm in a position where I take for granted how easy it is or how effective it can be to make decisions on my own. And I realize now that's in large part because you're facilitating that.
Yeoman helps.
I bet Nurkek would be happy to hear you say that.
Is he not around?
I assume it might have been off somewhere. They might have been off somewhere. So Captain says, we might want to think about it moving forward. Although there is no formal policy for this, I think we might want to attempt something a little bit different than just the occasional open conversation in my red room. I'd like to experiment with leaving certain decisions to a vote, or perhaps at least hear me out, just an implicit consensus. The more voices we hear, even if you and I are ultimately making certain decisions, I think the better position will be in the event that we need to rely on others more than we otherwise would.
I agree that this is a discussion that we should have, Commander. Captain. But
Mull it over.
I will.
We'll revisit this when we return to the ship.
Indeed.
Who knows? Our feelings might be different, but I think the least I can do is take the lessons that are living in front of me as a consequence of this experience.
Well, I guess, yeah, no, because Commander has explained, I imagine sometime in the past year, like, who the Trill are, really, to the point that, he just looks at the captain and goes, yes, combining experiences of different lifetimes seems a wise course of action, Captain.
The captain turns back to you and holds up a finger and says, touche.
Eventually you, human and Andorians, will figure something out.
Perhaps. And he looks like he's about to say dismissed, and then realizes the context, and also that he requests you to come and says, thank you, Commander. Oh, no. What he'd actually say is, because of what he's talking about, he'd say, thank you, Nurja.
Anytime, Your Lord. Now then, Captain, if you have...
Yeah.
Where are the Council of 14, and what is
of
the
course.
status of the planet?
Let's go there now.
So I can give you a bit of a summary. There was some initial shock and unrest as everything went under, went offline.
Mm-hmm.
But the forces and capabilities of the Queens, they have a very strong civil service, I guess, for lack of a better term. So things were brought under control fairly quickly. I also had some warning if this was going to happen. So the seat of Hermes was out there spreading the word and making sure everyone was informed and knew what they needed to know. People were kept where they were controllable and safe and comfortable. Resources being distributed. So now that things are still serious, but you have a steady supply of food and water and the resources that you need to, theoretically, you could continue this indefinitely. It's still scarcity, right? It's not like everyone is, having full meals all the time and that kind of stuff, but it's enough to maintain survival indefinitely.
Tighten your belt, live under a blanket.
Exactly. It's the the whole city has basically turned into effectively a refugee camp, where resources have to be partitioned out as required and that kind of thing. So they've got some mechanisms set up in place like that for that to happen. While you guys are sort of contemplating the state of things, Maeonia, seat of Athena, walks over towards you. And she says, Captain Chuchelor, there is a messenger that would like to speak to you.
All right.
They've requested to speak to you alone.
Oh. A messenger of yours? Or one of mine?
No. It's a servitor.
Nerdjad leans over, touches him on the shoulder, and says, I'm going to go get kitted out and then find out what this is all about.
Thank you, Commander. All right. If you will, lead me there.
All right. You are escorted out of the building into the outer courtyard. And there is a naked, unclothed, hairless servitor.
Whoa.
Standing with arms raised, with several of the seat of Ares folks.
Like fresh out of the tank kind of look?
Fresh out of the tank, brand new, spanking. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And Maeonia says they have no weapons, they pose no threats, but they wish to speak to you. Surrendered immediately upon entering the courtyard.
That's a good sign. I'm inclined to speak to them. They requested alone.
As you wish. And she just sort of waves a hand at the two guards, and they withdraw to a respectful distance. The servitor with hands up does not move as you approach.
Great. I'll get close enough that we can have a conversation without raised voices.
Okay.
And say, I've been told you sent for me.
The voice responds, unlike any of the servitors that you've dealt with personally, is completely flat.
Oh, here we go.
Fully emotionless. You are Irilor Chuchelor.
Captain Irilor Chuchelor, the Federation Starship Curie. NCC 1711.
Caretaker has an offer for you.
What is that offer?
You and your crew will be returned to your ship, unharmed. This can be done immediately, on the condition that you promise to never return.
Irilor purses his lips and says, such offers are often made, at least in my experience, when a person you're engaged with feels a sense of vulnerability. So without disrespect, I will acknowledge that perhaps the caretaker is concerned that their work or their future here is in peril as a consequence of what's happening.
The figure responds. The caretaker has calculated a non-zero probability of your success.
The caretaker and Jiffus should have a conversation. And now that there is a non-zero probability of our success, the caretaker would like to eliminate that by, I'm presuming, removing us from the situation
and allowing you to return to your lives unharmed.
It is a compelling offer. I should provide some context, however, for what our motivations are now. Because even when I am engaged with an adversary, I always like to give them the benefit of the doubt. That they would like to understand my motivations as much as I would like to understand theirs. As the caretaker knows, we were taken against our wishes or without our consent. It wasn't an element of consideration as far as we could tell. And upon a number of us recognizing the circumstances, our main goal was to get free. However, quite quickly, we developed a sense of appreciation, fondness, and camaraderie with those we were ostensibly brought here to elevate. And so the situation is different. We are no longer merely just passive participants in what's happening, afraid of strange circumstances, hoping to get home against all odds. We have new friends. We have new associates. And there are people we will not abandon to a fate that they no longer desire.
Your response is in the negative.
My response is a counteroffer, and then he leans in all dramatically, and he says, I am willing to assume that the caretaker has a mission they believe is benevolent, or at least meritorious in some way. Those the caretaker has been attempting to elevate now have a sense of agency they deserve to have in the beginning, considering that those in whose mode or model they were created had such agency in the first place. For us to depart, to our satisfaction and the satisfaction of those whose hands we now clasp, anything that happens must be done with their explicit, deliberate, and consensual participation. If the caretaker wishes to take care for them, it must be at their direction instead.
I'm going to give you a social persuade sort of role.
All right.
Which way you're going to go, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty is at 3.
Ooh, baby. Now would be the time to have determination.
And we're going to increase the complication range by 1.
All right.
Good
Makes
luck.
sense. Do we have any momentum on the board? I don't think so.
1.
There's 1.
There is one? Okay. We're rolling Presence Command with an additional die, hoping to get 3. All right, everybody.
Focus applies.
Yep. This would be a perfect time. It's bold. It's so bold. Okay. I'm rolling it. Everybody. About to roll it. Roll it. Yes! No complications.
No
3
complications.
successes.
Right across the board. 3 dice,
Yep.
3 successes every time.
Every time. First try.
I'm going to mull over that a little bit and leave things in suspense, I think, because now is a
Sounds good to
perfect
me.
time for a break.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah.
Twitch folks will be back in 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes or so. Just we have, to quote somebody I admire, frail human bodies that need maintenance. We'll be back in a little while. For YouTube guys, we'll be back in less than a second because Drew doesn't leave much of a space. Bye, buddy.
See you soon.
Where were we? Oh, yes, the offer. And you've just said no, but you can just stop being in charge and let the queens direct you from here on out. Now, just to out of character wise,
Yeah.
the conversation wasn't wasn't an option in the dialogue.
Oh, I know.
So the reason I had you to roll was to determine the level of response of the caretaker.
Cool.
The answer is going to be a no, but is it
Yeah, of
going
course.
to be no rain death from the sky,
Yeah.
or just a no? I'll let the probabilities play out.
Yeah.
So you've got the I'll let the probabilities play out response.
Mm-hmm.
It
'Cause
doesn't
you know-
have. Go ahead.
Remember, like, before the queens had their realization and agreed to help us, right? We said these are the priorities. Number 1, make sure the crew is safe.
Mhm.
Number 2, help other people. We got to the point where working with them, we now feel that the crew is safe, right? Like, we had just reached a transition where people aren't going to starve and we have our own power. So it now reached a point where Chichalor didn't feel that he would necessarily be abandoning the criteria responsibilities that he established before.
And now you,
I try to
now
intervene
you
on
have
their
some
behalf.
you have some cards in your hand
Yes, exactly.
at this point, whereas before you had nothing.
Yes.
Right. So the servitor responds, I will convey your message to the caretaker.
Please do. Also, if you're able, emphasize to the caretaker that hostilities between us are not necessary.
I will convey that message.
Please do. And then he
And,
says,
But
ooh, this is Starfleet. I'm trying to think if he's gonna, communicate a cliche here. Yeah. All right, he's gonna do it, of course. So he says, he says he'll convey that message, and so then he holds up the sign and he says, "Live long and prosper."
that sort of confuses the servitor.
Perfect.
Yep.
And then it sort of falls back on its programming and says, I will convey your message. And then turns and starts to walk away. One of the warrior queens sort of looks over to you and like, are we letting this thing go?
Yes. That's what we do.
Okay. And the servitor walks out of the courtyard and is quickly lost in the city.
Cool. And then he says to the warrior queen, and of course it doesn't need to be an extended scene, right? But I'll just provide the context of what he says moving back, that although he was raised in a warrior culture, that culture also imparted to him an understanding that you only fight when it's necessary.
We have, on occasion, some of our teachings, and this is back with the seed of Zeus,
Wait.
a concept known as the mercy of the sword. Fight when you have to, but only when you have to, and only as much as you have
Yes.
to. Victory isn't necessarily measured by the defeat of your opponent.
It's measured by how many of your own scruples you lose in the process.
Among other things. There's more than one path to victory.
Yes.
The secret is defining those conditions before the fight begins.
That's right.
If I can quickly interject here, Craig, because I realized I was not clear. Nerjot is going to go find his fucking uniform and his phaser.
Oh yeah, do we have all our stuff now?
Sure. Give me a roll for getting those resources back to you. Pitch me in how you want to do it.
Asking them nicely.
And it may take some effort on your part. That's why I'm looking for a roll on.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
You're
I mean,
trying to guide and direct them into things that they're not necessarily familiar with.
I mean,
oh, okay, fair enough.
presence and security for is my is Nurjad's thing. We have weapons that we are used to using. Weapons that we had on hand. They are not. I mean, I wasn't carrying a phaser 3, but they are useful weapons, and they're what we are trained in. And getting our uniforms back. Much as I look awesome in this, I look better in my uniform.
Sure. So pitch me a roll and go ahead and make it.
Presence plus security.
Sure.
And my focus applies. This is diplomacy and cool.
Well,
Listen, need
And
my
I-
uniform.
I should tell you this before in advance, but I set the difficulty at 2 just because you're asking for things that they're not familiar with. They've never thought about what happens to the gear that people had when they arrived. It's not something they've ever thought to process.
And they probably didn't know he came with other things.
Right. You just sort of show up ready, kitted out for their society. So you can bank those extra 2, or you can do some obtain information if you wish.
Nope, just gonna bank
Okay.
those. Because that puts, unless I'm mistaken, yes, up to 3.
Yep.
'Cause 3's a magic number.
So it takes a little bit of time, but you are eventually receive a message and you go out into the city, not far from the arena where the new subjects will arrive. And the doors are open and you're looking at a huge warehouse.
Indiana Jones's warehouse, just
Basically something like that, not quite to that scale, but full of stuff. And it's easy enough for you and your crew to find your equipment. So you all have, should you choose to wear it, your uniforms back.
Yep.
Excellent.
And your tricorders and all your weapons, all that stuff. It appears that all the stuff is sorted by arrival.
sure.
So
Oh,
there's a
that's
lot of
interesting information then.
there's a lot of stuff here going back for a while.
The historian, the cultural studies part of Nurjad
Yes.
is freaking out and going,
Yeah.
I'll be back for all of you.
Yeah.
Promise.
Did we see other things from our people? Like, is there earlier Starfleet stuff here?
Definitely something that Nurjad will probably look for.
That would take a little bit of time to dig into.
Because I'm imagining they're all in just like huge container kind of things, not just sitting out, right?
And not necessarily huge, but there are crates you would have to go through in order to try and find that out. But based on the markings and stuff that identify that this was, you don't think there's other Starfleet stuff in here? It's hard to tell, but they're mostly sorted by date.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively speaking, like there's the newer stuff is at the front and the older stuff is at the back. They're not like categorized or neatly filed or anything like that. It's just basically the Caretaker and its minions are treating this as interesting junk.
Sure.
That's not particularly useful to them, but there's use for it, and then file it away.
So
So you
Nurjad
know.
puts his uniform on
Okay.
and goes and gets himself an Athenian helmet.
Yes.
Easy enough to do with the frill and everything.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
If anybody asks, it's 100% just so he's easily identifiable as the executive officer, not just because it looked really cool.
Absolutely. For sure, this is absolutely, there's a logical reason why you would be wearing the Athenian helmet in your Starfleet uniform.
Yep.
And that's a Sun Tzu thing, right? The leader should be stand apart and look separate. So let's do another scene at some point. Shortly thereafter, your offer from the Caretaker, Commander Levine sort of comes up to Lieutenant Commander Levine comes up to Commander Nurjad and says, "I think you want to see this."
Sounds like it.
And she takes you in a sky car transport device out of the city.
Ooh.
Into the surrounding countryside, where you find, and you're traveling for about a half an hour. You find what looks like ruins of a smaller city or maybe an industrial site.
Oh.
The buildings are all quite dilapidated. You can tell they were buildings, but most collapsed from disuse. And there's a larger structure, and one wall has caved in, that looks very much like a hangar. And Commander Levine is sort of smiling slyly as you pick your way over some rubble, duck under some stuff, squeeze through a narrow, confined space, and you enter into a large cavernous sort of room. And there are 6 vehicles there. 2 of them are absolutely destroyed by collapsed building, and the other 2 are very badly damaged. But there's 2 in the back corner that appear to be mostly intact. And she says, I'm not sure how to control them, but based on the analysis I've done, these things are absolutely capable of leaving the atmosphere. There are no warp drives or anything like that, but if you want to get into orbit, these things are capable of doing it. So verklemmt. It's teared out. Yeah.
Just Nurjad. The fact that we're talking literally the Venn diagram of Nurjad's shit. We have cultural shit. We have shuttles.
Yeah.
And just Levine, just the hug and be like, okay, at least we have spare parts.
And she's like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Given all the stuff that's in here, I could probably get one of these working in a few hours. They haven't moved in a long, long time.
So between the 2 of us, it'll be an hour.
Possibly, if you have the time to spare. I just wanted you to see this. I thought you'd appreciate this.
Captain.
Yeah.
Yes, Commander.
Do you have anything that's and you said these are basically like video phones, Craig? Like we have anything that's particularly important right now as like he turns and puts his back and so there's the line of shuttles behind him. Is there anything I need to be working on right now, Captain? Cause
No.
No, Levine. We're good.
All right. So that's going to take some time and personnel to take out those, but they're definitely something that you're going to have access to.
Yep.
One, perhaps two, depending on how things go. So that's one scene. And the next scene is Dr. Hudson coming into the central area.
Oh, yeah.
And says that I believe we have a solution.
Do tell.
It's likely to incapacitate a sizable portion of our workforce implemented.
For how long?
Probably an hour or 2.
That seems acceptable.
But when they come out of it, they should have all of their faculties returned to them.
Amazing. Are there any risks?
The risk is that the downtime might be much longer than I anticipated.
Okay. But for those who are affected, any risk to their memories, their selves, their faculties?
No, I think we've isolated the problem, mostly thanks to Commander Nurjad's particular physiology.
Of course.
And on the reasons why it wasn't as deeply ingrained, we should be able to counteract it. So we're ready to go whenever you give the order.
All right. Let me speak to the seat of Zeus and confer with Yeoman Nurkek.
Okay.
Was that the captain having a pause before he's saying yes and going, I gotta check with somebody first?
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. It's him trying to implement what he just said. So, he'll go to find Yeoman Nurkek. And if we all have communicators at this point, who knows if we do, but if we do, then he would summon Yeoman Nurkek.
At the very least, the core people that need them and field commanders and that kind of stuff all have them. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
So you find Yeoman Nurkek. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And then approach the seat of Zeus and also suggest that she bring Rhea.
Right. Just based on your delivery, she says, it sounds serious, so let's meet in my office.
Yes. Let's.
So you and Yomanarkek and Nakia and Rhea are behind closed doors.
Excellent. And so he comes in and he at first has his hands behind his back and then he moves them out and he says, all right. Dr. Hudson has achieved a breakthrough. He's realized how to restore the memories, personalities, really the agency to the vast majority of our crew. However, there is a consequence that bears appreciation, which is that it will temporarily deplete a considerable number of the people attending to the tasks we need to keep ourselves alive. And there is to use the Caretaker's recent terminology, a non-zero probability that their impairment will last longer than an hour, perhaps far longer.
Narkek just there's a much bigger elephant in this room.
Speak freely.
At a ballpark count, there's something like 60 different species represented in your workforce. Most of whom we have no idea what they're actually like. If you remove what's keeping them a functioning workforce, like maybe they're Klingon equivalents or Nausicaan equivalents, and the coordination that we have now will fall apart into infighting and warlords and pulling the plug on the indoctrination, while I understand it's a moral imperative, might unravel everything you've done so far.
I mean, that's certainly a consequence we can deal with when it comes. We can't keep people unwitting, slaves to our desires, just as a consequence of our concern about their culturally informed behavior.
All I'm saying is not every species in the galaxy follows Starfleet morals and ethics.
That's true.
And Nakia says, we have very little experience beyond the occasional species that is unsuitable for service in this site. We don't know what they're like without indoctrination. And based on, I'm given to understand that your level of forbearance when you learn the truth is perhaps not common in the wider universe.
He looks like he's trying to hedge. I think that is a fair assessment.
Rhea says, we've been living alive for a long, long time. At some point, we're going to have to stop living that high. This is going to come sooner or later. Nakia says, yes, of course, we're not going to keep them in this state forever. But we are in a fragile position right now. I think you would agree to that, Captain?
Yes, indeed.
And Narkek says, yeah, and this is going to throw 60, 90 some odd extra variables that we have no control over into the mix.
Well, considering that you say that, how many uncontrolled variables could we accommodate? What is your assessment?
Well, the Seed of Aries folks are very efficient, but there's not that many of them. If, just a ballpark, if 25% of the population decided they weren't going to play along, I don't know that the Seed of Aries folks could handle all of that.
How much do you think they could handle?
50 comfortably, possibly 20 at a push.
All right. Well, let's be careful.
I'm thinking worst case scenario. If we let 25% of the people go and they all turn crazy, it's a wash.
I love that. Okay. Phrased it that way. That's real satisfying to the captain because they'll say, okay, all right, how about this? And it's going to look like they're haggling over how many people they free. If anybody else is watching, right? It's not a captain making a decision. He's like, as though it's the two of them, right? They're going to get brought back into it, but briefly it's going to look like that. So Captain Chichalor says, all right, okay. What if, say, we keep it to 15% and then see how it goes? And in the event that that's not a problem, then we can free others.
That gives us some flexibility in case things start to get unraveled. Sure.
Exactly. Okay, that sounds good.
Now, do you know anything about the solution? Is Doc able to do it? That Doc tends to think big.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I wanted to talk to you before I investigated that possibility because, I mean, hey, if there's some contingencies I wasn't considering, then I prefer to know about them before exploring the option further. Okay, so we keep it to 15% with a priority for our crew, and then see how it goes as a test case, provided that the doctor is able to do that. And then he turns around, he's like, or not turns around, but then he turns away a little bit in thought, and he's like, yeah, that seems good. And so he turns back to Nikkei and Rhea and says, what do you think?
Nikkei, glancing at Rhea, says, I think it needs to be all. And we just do our best to make the case that we all need to work together to get out of this. I know from first-hand experience that you can be very persuasive, Captain.
Well, thank you.
By Rhea's frown, definitely, like, she likes the idea, but she understands that this is a big risk.
Okay. All right. Okay, considering that, this is what I think we should do. I think that there may be some unexpected consequences or unconsidered effects due to the treatment. And therefore, it would be unfair of us to expose everyone, especially those that we don't know, to this without evaluating the direct consequences. So some of our crew should be exposed to the treatment because we want to free them, and that is an explicit responsibility on our parts. Provided that we haven't observed any consequences within a large enough group, then we proceed to free everyone. The small group will be no more than 15%. Our crew doesn't number that high anyway. And then we free everyone else with a plan and expectation that we'll need to communicate to them the dire circumstances and exhort them to work with us to secure their ultimate freedom.
And Rhea says easier to do if we're doing it by batches. So they come to in a controlled setting, smaller group, give us a chance to fill them in on the current situation.
Exactly.
Marquette says most of them are not going to want to stay. Do we have a plan for getting them off planet?
And he says, I believe we do. In process.
All right. Sounds like you've made up your mind.
I think we've made up our mind.
All right. So that will start a process going. The doc had intended to cover a large area all at once, but it's easy enough for the Doctor just to focus. So you'll be bringing people to a location, zapping them in large groups at a time.
Excellent. Yeah.
Under controlled circumstances.
Yep. And observing what happens to them, giving them a little bit of time to see if there's residual neurological dysfunction as a consequence.
And
Sure.
while the Seed of Ares is great and all, we have Shavor and my security team.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So once we free
Start with
them,
them.
yep.
Yep.
a good idea.
And priority will be given to the Journey's crew. Yep, no problem. So that process starts. It's a little rocky. You can't be there for every sort of awakening, but you can get your
Welcome to your new old life.
That's right. But your crew, and most importantly, your counselors,
Excellent.
can be
Yeah.
there to sort of help people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, your job would suggest that we do this by department.
Mhm.
Departments
Yeah.
are still going to be multicultural, multiracial within the Curie. We already
Mhm.
have most of the department heads available to be there to be like, hey guys, department meeting.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
one extra complication on this is that the Doctor recommends that even those that are currently freed of the indoctrination
Mhm.
go through treatment as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just in case.
Because there is some residual effects. There's, for example, you don't know what happened while you were here before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It'll fix our memory loss.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
All right. So there's a period of chaos that sort of follows as senior staff are down for a period of time, and the timeout is variable between an hour and 4 hours, depending. But it seems to be much more individual rather than a class of folks. For narrative purposes, you guys are all up and around fairly quickly. No huge surprises. You guys remember being on the ship. You remember encountering a probe. And then there was an intruder alert. People started vanishing, and it was all over in under 5 minutes.
Wow.
Shields didn't have any effect. It was just able to do some sort of a matter transference, and you were just gone. But the probe that you encountered was way too small to physically house all of your people. So the theory that Jiffis comes up with is perhaps they have some sort of an enhanced pattern buffer,
Yeah.
and you were just like digitally stored.
Hmm. That's what I was
Um,
going to suggest out of character.
And then you guys materialized back in, and you sort of wake up. You don't remember what happened when you're unconscious, but you wake up and you're part of the society, and the queens are awesome, and you want to help them any way you can. Language has been implanted, and things like that. No, I don't think there's any real surprises for anyone except perhaps Will. Freed from the, and you can flavor this or change, but I think freed from the inhibitions trained into you from Starfleet and your experiences, and told that you were in a position where you could just excel, that you were not merciless or ruthless, but you, like, this was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this was kind of like home. Felt really comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like she was thriving.
And like, you were definitely, especially given the recent experiences with the reduced inhibitions and things like that, this was like that on steroids. You could be a complete badass, and you didn't have to answer to anyone as long as you earned your victories and did your placements and stuff like that. So you sailed through a lot of the early trials, and that's where you got yourself the attention of the Queen, who also saw your skills in leadership and management, and plucked you out of the whole trial system in order to put you in charge of the gladiatorial side of things. So I'm not sure how Villa will integrate that persona moving forward, but there's definitely going to be, like, that's not who you are, kind of, but it also really was who you were.
It's who you could be.
Definitely could be, but would be difficult to do that within the confines of Starfleet. That's not how they're set up. The Andorian space fleet is much more like that. Where you're a badass and the point of it is to be a badass. And the leaders tend to be those who are just the biggest badasses. It's sort of how they're structured as a warrior kind of society. So there might be some stuff there for Villa to process moving forward. There's a few
she
other.
didn't grow up as an Andorian, really.
Mhm.
I think I actually had her as
I think your upbringing is on
like Vulcan ambassadors were her family,
Mhm.
and then she went to Starfleet like as soon as she was grown.
So with that sort of logic, lack of emotion background, is kind of at odds with what happened during the inhibitions incident, but also what happened when you were on the planet. Because looking back, like, it felt great.
Yeah.
So stuff to put in the bookmark for later. At the end of this process, where you've got now most of your crew is up and around and functional, and there's some difficulty reintegrating, like, oh, I'm not a member of a society anymore. I'm part of a crew and I have to take orders. So there's a lot of processing happening for your crew as they're making the adjustment. For you folks, it's fairly quick, right? Like, given the circumstances and stuff, but you had a smaller, more immediate concern to focus your attention. These folks aren't. They don't have, like, immediate tasks that they need to do. And their responsibilities are kind of tied to a ship that isn't here anymore. So there's some breakdowns in communication and breakdowns in the chain. Nothing critical, but it takes a little more effort from the command team's perspective to maintain order and discipline. Just because of the things that they're going through.
Yeah, engineering is over here going, we're not an away team.
Yeah.
Where's our reactor room?
Exactly.
I bet Jeffus already has partitions around this power core he's generated.
It's
The white
I'm
noise
hanging out
machine.
here. Yeah.
For folks like that, for the engineering team, for example, it's easy to give them a focus. Like, we need to power these buildings, we need to this, and this is kind of like the stuff that engineers kind of like. This is troubleshooting and hacking stuff together. And so for the engineering side, it's not too bad. For the science folks, especially those with the cultural dint or alien species focuses, there's a lot to learn and do, so they're kind of occupied. It's more the support staff and stuff like that, definitely at loose ends. So that sort of happens in a block of time. I'm not too concerned about putting numbers to it or something like that, but at the end of that block of time, Commander Jiffis and Servitor 264 appear before Captain Chuchalor.
Mm-hmm.
And Jiffis says, "We have it.
You found?
The location of the Caretaker.
Oh, wow.
It's in a bunker several miles below the surface. But we think we have access to it."
Here went my bombing drone idea.
Yeah. Access by way of tunnels, lifts.
Tunnels and lifts. We'll probably have to travel on foot since the Caretaker's cut power or has control over those. We wouldn't trust them anyway, but there's access tunnels and maintenance shafts and stuff we can use to get there. It will take some time. We wouldn't be able to move a large force there, given the confining space and the length of the journey, but we could get a small team into the Caretaker. Based on the schematics that we've found, the Caretaker doesn't have any sort of defenses other than vaults and locked doors and things of that nature. What we've, based on the maps we found in the tunnels, we should be able to get right into the main core.
Wow.
And I don't think there's anything Caretaker can do about it.
Hmm.
They might be able to assemble some new servitors and things like that, but we already know that those are not combat capable. So we could
Have you
drive
found where the new servitors are assembled?
there's manufacturing facilities at several different locations.
Might be good to shut those down.
And most of those are actually shut down already because they're part of the main power grid.
Okay.
There's, as far as we can tell, there's one facility that's still attached to the main complex, the bunker where the Caretaker's at.
I see.
But if you want a small team, you can move against them or talk, interface, adjust programming. We can get physical access to the Caretaker.
Wow. I think we need to have a face-to-face. However, this isn't entirely my decision to make. Actually, it's not my decision to make. Thank you, Jivs. Or no, he doesn't say it. He says, thank you, Commander.
Hmm.
And he says, thank you to Servitor. But and then he pauses and he says, do you have a name?
Servitor 264.
That's a designation.
Commander Jiffus is referring to me as Servo.
Do you like that?
It feels comfortable.
Would you like that I call you Servo?
I would not mind.
Thank you, Servo.
You're not. I'm glad that we can save this cycle.
Perhaps we'll save them all.
I'm just glad to be able to help.
And you certainly are.
Path is
So,
open.
what did you say?
The path is open.
Fantastic. So, Commander Chichalor will then. What?
You called yourself
Captain.
commander.
Yeah.
Oh God! Yeah, we now you and I are fantastic. Let's see. He's knocking himself down a peg. So Captain Chichalor will approach the seat of Zeus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and say, "Okay, I believe we are now in a position for, well, final talks with the Caretaker. We should discuss the details."
I've known that this was coming, and I've been devoting a lot of thought to it, and I still do not know how to proceed. Everything that we are, and we're based off of, the lives we have, all came from the Caretaker. Generations of queens. Whatever twisted version of its purpose, it did look after us. I don't want to destroy it if we don't have to.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
But I recognize that might be necessary for our fleet. Our fleet people really are remarkable. For all of our success of our forebears and all of our advancement and every generation of queens is theoretically better than the last. None of my people could have dealt with this as well as you have.
You flattered us.
I merely speak facts. We were advanced in some ways, but held back in many ways by the Caretaker and their program. One way or another, it has to end.
It does.
I only hope it can end peacefully.
It might help to remember that you might be also offering the Caretaker a way out of their own limitations.
True. They will be, in many respects, defined by their programming. If we can find a solution that allows them to satisfy that programming.
Are the queens able to procreate?
It's a female society.
Oh,
There are no males. They don't, but there's no asexual reproduction. The new generations all come from the cloning facility.
There's ways around that, but
if you're asking if they engage in those sorts of behaviors in a recreational way,
not what I am
no,
asking.
Yeah, no, there's no way for them to procreate on their own. Physiologically, they are capable of it, but there are no males of their species.
It seems like if they could, then
They have all the required parts and mechanisms and stuff like that to do it. They just don't have the males to make it happen. Does that answer your question?
Oh, sure, but it's also very easy to fix that.
Perhaps.
is it though?
Not necessarily creating males, but allowing for artificial.
True.
Yep.
True. And given that there hasn't been a birth on this system in many years, that would be an interesting experience for them to go through, I'm sure. So what is the plan?
So this is something else to, finish off this bit of conversation.
Okay.
So Captain Chichalor says, I'd like to point out as well that we have, up until this point, been thinking of the Caretaker as some non-person. In effect, a subroutine, computer, some advanced artificial intelligence that's empowered to accomplish a goal, some specific goal. My understanding is that none of you have ever met the Caretaker directly, and we certainly have. So I'd like for us to engage them without the assumption that they lack feelings. They may have their own motivations and for one reason or another are restricted to the expectations that were laid upon them before the ancients left.
That is a good point I had not considered.
I find that even in the most tense battlefield negotiations, I'm able to perform, or say, I'm able to do my best when I remember that other people were entitled to a little bit of empathy and compassion.
Well, I will concede it is difficult to feel compassion for an entity that was trying to wipe us out. I do see the value.
Yeah.
And I will work towards that.
I'm glad. Because the important thing is not, well, it's not what they deserve. Well, no, you wouldn't say it. No, you say the important thing is the consequences for you. Consequences for us. Even if someone has done something reprehensible. The most important consequence is that I am able to function better And when I am able to function at my best, it means that I will be in the best position to look after the people in my care and make decisions that will have the best outcomes for them.
I once again found myself grateful for your counsel.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to give it. So what I'd suggest is this. Considering this is an engagement with your progenitor, that you need to make sure that you and at least the rest of the council are okay with it. I wouldn't dictate how you, Achaia, make the decision specifically on behalf of the future of yourself and your civilization. Just that when we engage them, that you don't want to feel as though you haven't appreciated any potentially relevant perspectives.
I think I will take some time and discuss it.
And while you're doing that, I will help my crew with the other things we're attending to.
Right. So the senior queens withdraw at that point, leaving their subordinates in charge, and the coordination is all still happening. Is there anything else you guys want to do before you head down?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Chichalor would want to happen. He wants to make sure that if things go pear-shaped, then we can jump on a ship and get out of here, right? Because we're not going to die, right? He's not going to let us leave people to die. He's going to okay, people, we're going to get on the ships and take as many as we can and get off the planet, right? So he wants to make sure that that is still an option, all right? He also wants to make sure that in the event that the team doesn't make it back, that there are enough resources for the people who's left to fend for themselves,
And
right?
and things like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
If it so happens that the caretaker does something ridiculous, like collapses all the tunnels and explodes a bunch of things, he doesn't want to. He would regret tremendously. It'd be posthumous regret, of course, but he would regret it tremendously if there wasn't some means by which the survivors were able to fend for themselves.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get some dice to resolve one of those questions and see how many of these ships you can get going. So Commander in your job. Let's do some dice. You were working with Wing Commander Levine to try and get ships space-worthy.
Yep.
I'm thinking she's going to be doing a control con for as an assist for you, and then some sort of engineering role, I'm thinking, on your part.
Would control engineering make sense?
Control engineering, sure.
Okay. I have 4 different focuses that apply here.
Yeah.
And,
So let me give her assist roll first.
Sure. And what kind of difficulty are we looking at?
It's fairly tough, but you have a lot of spare parts and access to schematics and things of that nature, so I'm going to set it at 2.
Okay.
And you have 1 extra die from Wing Commander Levine giving you one.
Okay. So I'm going to... no, we're just going to let that ride.
Oh, hang on. Her focus would apply here. What do I roll?
2.
Yes, so that's 2 extra dice from Wing Commander Levine.
I am
Baby.
definitely not spending momentum. Cool.
You don't even need to, baby.
Don't say that. But hopefully. Cool. Yeah, let's do it. 3.
3 successes. So for 3 successes, I will let you have 2 ships fully functional, ready to go, able of taking off and transporting.
How big are these ships, though? Because this is one of the questions that I meant to ask earlier.
So these are cargo ships. They have a lot of storage capacity. You wouldn't be able to get anywhere near the full population into them, but they would definitely be big enough to fit a couple 300 folks. So definitely enough to evacuate your crew plus.
Okay.
As just a benchmark.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had an extra ship or something, or can find other ships, they could be used to ferry back and forth and that kind of thing. Assuming there's a ship nearby. We have left Villa alone for a little bit. Can you give me another? I think we're doing reason engineering.
Engineering or science?
Engineering, or no, science. Yeah, we're working on a subspace communicator. I totally forgot about that. Circling back now. 2 more successes. Give me some challenge dice.
Bad.
Yeah, still working on it. You're definitely on the right track, but you're not quite complete yet by this point. But you're not far away, right? So heading into the Queens emerge from their closed door meeting, and Nicaea finds Irlord. And she has Maeonia, the seat of Athena, with her.
Okay, cool.
And Nicaea says, after intense discussions, we've agreed we would like to approach this as a negotiation. And given the nature of the kind of interaction we're looking for, Maeonia would be the best to accompany you. She has, as might be expected from the seat of Athena, a focus on wisdom, but is also able to defend herself should that become necessary.
Potent combination.
Now, there's also a certain poetic closure to it that somebody has found appealing, that the seat of Mother Athena should be speaking to our father figure, the Caretaker.
Mm-hmm. That which sits him, well, down in the pits of Olympus.
So Maeonia will be accompanying you. This is well out of our experience and expertise. So we would like to rely on you and your crew to guide this expedition moving forward.
We'll do so. We appreciate your trust.
Okay. So you'll be taking Maeonia down with you, but what's the plan for moving forward? And this will be like a journey of hours to get
Yes,
down.
of course. It's going to be a long time. Yeah, it's cramped tunnels. It's several miles down, right? So, not just 7 miles on flat ground forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chicholor doesn't want to... Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to focus the discussion a little bit, first thing I'd want to know is like who you're going to take with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to describe. Cool.
Okay.
We are on the same page.
Cool.
Chicholor wouldn't want to discuss the details of the plan until Commander Kitniol and Wing Commander Levine are available, right? He doesn't want to distract them because that's a high priority thing they're accomplishing. So once they return, right, he would get together, all right, who are we bringing, who can we leave, right? Because there's a risk to people going down. In the event that everyone dies, right, something we're all going to try and prevent, but we're going into the Earth. We're going into the planet, right? We're going beneath the ground for many miles. It's not like we can easily escape. Somebody can't just throw down a rope and pull us out.
So you don't have transporters to... Yeah.
Exactly, right? These are dangerous circumstances. So, that's a good question. Yes!
The captain and Nerdjot, miles away, both tilt their head at the same time. Going,
wait a minute. That opens a question. Would Jiffus be able to create transporter technology? Like a one-time use transporter?
That is a big ask.
There's something on the planet that does transporters.
Yep.
Well,
totally.
something within the control of the Caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
in the investigations, they haven't found any sort of matter transference devices within the city limits at all. But based on the memories that you have recovered, it could be that is limited to the drones, and you're not entirely clear what. Yeah, and you're not entirely clear what direct control the Caretaker has over the drones, or if they're an autonomous system, or.
Okay. Well,
it's
to be
possible.
fair, the other information we do have is that the Caretaker offered to return us to our ship unharmed immediately.
True.
So
must
from
have some control over them.
Exactly, from Captain Chichalor's perspective, the Caretaker could do this. So there must be some technology that allows transportation to the ship, or that would allow it. So yeah, I imagine they both think, "Oh, wait a minute, yeah, we're going to go down to the Earth, and there's some way that we can guarantee that people can get out if they're stuck. We'd want to try it." So yeah, it's a big ask. That's fine. So Captain Chichalor would want to talk to Jiffis about that in the event. And so then moving back to the discussion of the crew complement for this particular away mission, we want to make sure that there's some redundancy in the crew left behind, right? We need to decide who can we take along, who can we not afford to lose. What I mean is, who can we not afford to lose down in the pit?
Right.
That also isn't necessary to be down there.
Yeah, let's wrap early.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, y'all can keep going, but I've got to go.
And this is a
No worries.
discussion that we want to have with Chris here too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone needs to participate in and out of character to decide who's going down there. Because Dr. Hudson is necessarily going to have some very specific opinions about who goes and who doesn't go.
All right. So given that situation, I think it's probably a good spot to wrap now, a little bit earlier than usual. Ash is having doggo issues. Poor doggo.
Yes.
Poor Ash.
Poor Ash. So let me pull up my script here. We'll pick this up next time. Right, there's my script. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I really did. This was this was a lot of fun. Heavy dice rolling episode, but those aren't necessarily a bad thing. Thank you to Roll20 and our patrons for your ongoing support. We really appreciate it. If you haven't joined us on Discord, what's stopping you? It's an awesome community, very welcoming and very great, and there's all kinds of stuff outside of mage and role playing, and there's just people hanging out and being cool together. You can join us on Discord at yeetinto.space. That's yeetinto.space. If you feel so inclined, we would certainly welcome you to support us on Patreon at staylucky.club. And I guess that's it. Thank you all very much.
All right. Join us next time for more bold action.